What is up, guys? It is Joe back again talking about the Kansas State Wildcats, this time back onto the basketball side of things for a quick video talking about the recap behind Kansas State's win over Oral Roberts. Was it the greatest game? No, it was sloppy. It took us to overtime, but a win nonetheless. I'll talk about my thoughts for today's video, talking about some of the ups and downs, some of the player performances, what I expect going forward, why this game, why this one felt just bad, why it felt hard to be a part of, hard to watch. We'll talk about a couple things like that, but we also want to talk about some of the positives down the stretch because I think that we learned a lot about the team in this game, and I'll discuss that and more at length here. Quick reminder to consider subscribing to the channel. I really appreciate having more and more people to talk Kansas State basketball with and Kansas State football with. If that's you, consider joining the group because we appreciate it each and every day. I don't know why I always say we. It is just me, so I apologize for saying we. My brain defaults to it, but nonetheless, consider subscribing if that type of content interests you. I'll read you through the box score here. I'll give you some of my thoughts and the stats specifically. There's a couple of different storylines I want to, poke at and discuss. I've got it pulled up here on the side, so if you see me looking off, that's why. Kansas State gets the win 88-78 over Oral Roberts, a team that won 30 games last season, lost 5 games, 30-5 record. Obviously, that came with Max Abmas, who K-State fans know well enough to know that he was close to committing to K-State or whatever the case was, did visit Manhattan. Didn't work out. Max goes elsewhere. Tyler Perry comes to K-State in his spot. And you have some different moving things in that sense. Max Abmas does stay in the Big 12, goes over to Texas, having a good season with them. But let's talk about this, guys. I don't know if you're watching this on Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. I guess, you could just wait 5 weeks and then watch it. You can watch this years later, so this might not even make sense. But at this time, I assume you're watching it on Wednesday, so I'm going to give you the Wednesday pitch. Wednesday, Manhattan Brewing Company, be there. They've got trivia. I'm a dude about trivia. Like people talk about, we got dudes. Trivia is my thing, man. I am a trivia guru, a trivia guy. That being said, I also get my butt kicked all the time. Go ahead and enjoy some trivia over at Manhattan Brewing Company this Wednesday. They put out their schedules for the weekly events on Twitter, on social media. You'll see it there. So be sure to get the loadout figured out for that, because they got a lot of great things going on. I mean, let me run you through this here. I'm going to skip past Monday, Tuesday. They do an industry night, a Taco Tuesday, where it's usually $1 off margaritas. There's always some great stuff all around. But Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, every day of the week, there's something different going on. Wednesday is today. You're probably watching it Wednesday. Trivia with Trivial Zombies at 7 p.m. $2 off everything on tap for students and military after 6 p.m. If you're a student, if you're a military, go over there and do that. Obviously, that's me being stupid. Don't quote me on that. But winter cocktail menus back on Thursday. Live music at 7 p.m. Always a cool thing to go see live music, as well as the Christmas parade on Friday. If you don't want to do any of the events, go drink an ice-cold beer there anyways, because Tang Party is where it's at. As we talk about the Tang Party we saw, was it the Tang Party that we're used to where, there's, rave music and lights and dancing and flashing? No. This one was kind of like a slow dance at a middle school ballroom where you kind of sway a little bit. That's kind of the idea. But it wasn't the greatest product we've ever seen. But I'll tell you this, guys. We did learn a lot about the team in this game. First thing that comes to my mind, I don't know that I love the rotation right now. It is important to acknowledge, this isn't the full-strength Kansas State, so I think that what you're going to see, and I'll go on a little mini rant here in a minute, I think, but what I want to talk about is that this is not our March lineup. This is not the middle of March. This is not the first weekend in March, second weekend in March. This is not peak Kansas State basketball because we're not at the point where we're ready to be that team yet. I think that people forget that immediately. I mean, this is what, game 6, game 5? We are so early in the process. You're missing Quez Glover. Probably won't be back till the last weekend of December. I think it was either last weekend of December or first weekend of December. So 2 very different timelines, but it's somewhere in that stretch. Nae'Qwan Tomlin, still no update on his health of the ankle, on his suspension status, whatever the case is. I would expect that Quan will be back here to start off December, to be honest. Don't quote me on this, but that is just my thoughts. I don't know if that's true or not, but that's how I'm feeling. Arthur Kaluma, and I thought about this a little bit. Arthur Kaluma started by coming off the bench. Does it make sense? Not really. Coach Tang kind of doing his own thing, so I can't call him out by any means because I don't coach basketball, man. I don't know what the decision is. If it's they talked about it in post, and Coach Tang said coach's decision. Is it a Art needs to buy in thing? This is a statement. You sit on the bench, or is it I talked about it on Twitter a little bit with some buddies. I mentioned maybe this is them trying to figure out what the rotation is for when Quan does come back. They had Cam Carter at the 3 rotating with Michaela Rich, which at face value wouldn't make sense in my brain because Cam's more of a 2 guy, but then you also see Cam rotating with RJ Jones and Day-Day Ames at the 2. You see a couple of different people, and I should give a shout out real quick to Ryan Gilbert for bringing that up. Ryan Gilbert put out a tweet during the game. Appears as if Michaela Rich and Cam Carter are trading off minutes at the 3 spot, whereas Day-Day Ames and RJ Jones are trading off minutes at the 2. I'm not here to say what's to like about that, what's not to like about that. It's a little confusing to me, but you know what? I'm not a coach, man. I don't get paid to do this. Looking through the minute split here, so the guy that played the most minutes was Tyler Perry. Tyler Perry finished with 43 minutes in this game. Then you got Cam Carter at 41. You had Day-Day Ames get 33. Arthur Kaluma still finished with 34 minutes. So I think that, the discipline idea of, hey, he's got to come off the bench, or, I don't know that I believe that entirely. It might just be a rotation, might be a fit thing. We'll see what happens there. Then you got David Gason, the next tenured guy, I guess in this case, at 27 minutes, and then Will McNair with 24. Then you had the combination of the freshmen, outside of Day-Day, not doing a ton. You had R.J. Jones with 7 minutes, Michaela Rich with 9, Jarrell Colbert with 6. Did not see Dorian Finister, Taj Manning, or anyone else in this contest. It's important to note this is not the March lineup. This is not our first weekend, second weekend. This isn't a thing that has to be done right now. That being said, the immediate thought that I have, okay, so here's what I've been thinking about. And it kind of hit me earlier today as I considered, the first half was not exactly ideal. Second half was not exactly ideal, but you think back to last year, and I hate to do the whole compare last year to this year, compare this year to last year, whatever the case is, but I'm going to do it. I have a real thing I want to talk about. Usually when the season's over, you close the book. You move on. You say, you know what, that's that, we're done. The thing that I want to reopen the book to discuss. Last year's team started off, 12-0, 12-1, I think it was, going into that Texas game. Weird 12-1, Texas is 12-1. Or something like that. They might have been 13-0 at the time. Going into that first game on the road in Austin. K-State hit their stride a lot earlier than this team will, and I fully believe that. The reason I think that is the lack of leadership. That's a serious thing. And I don't mean to say that there's not leaders on this team, but Marquise Noel was the defined leader. It didn't matter if it was a Coach Tang-led team, if it was a Bruce Weber-led team. That dude, that personality is a defined leader who's going to command the team. I mean, he's going to be the guy, whether it's good or bad, he's the one taking responsibility, taking accountability. That's what a leader does. That's what Marquise Noel does. When you don't have a leader and you kind of have guys looking around being like, well, shoot, who's going to step up? Who's going to do this? I'm not saying they're doing that. I'm not saying that nobody's a leader on this team, but it's going to take a little bit longer for this team to figure out where they blend together. Who's going to realize, like, oh, I can take over in this moment. I can take control of this moment. I see this is going to happen. This is going to happen. This is my time to step up. I'm the leader. I'm going to take care of this. I don't know that we'll see this team look as great out of the gates as we will last year. That being said, there are some dudes on that path. I mean, you had Cam Carter go for his first career double-double. Game situation called for it. You had Tyler Perry score nothing in the first half, then 20 in the second half, which, quick thought on Tyler Perry. Coach Tang said in postgame that Tyler wasn't feeling very well. He's been doing breathing treatments all day, all week. I wish I would have heard about that because I would like to know what's going on there, if he's just got a cold, if he's sick, if something's happening. Not that I'm, reading into it too much, but I'm interested to see what happened there because it wasn't tweeted about, it wasn't talked about. Mentioned that he's doing breathing treatments and stuff, so TP obviously had a huge second half, slow first half, and he kind of joked about it in the end where he's like, in the post game he talked about it, he's like, well, this has been happening my whole life. I can't really explain it, but it's just how it goes. Some nights it clicks, some nights it doesn't in the first half, but the second half has always been strong. This is where I want to do a quick little mini rant. It'll be 60 seconds. I'll keep it short and sweet. The word regression gets thrown around way too much in the mouth of college football fans, in the mouth of college basketball fans, in the mouth of K-State fans. The word regression. One guy has an off night, this guy's regressed heavily from last year. This guy's, he's not the same player he was last year, he's regressing. The next night, he'll put up 30 points. He'll put up 24 points. He'll have a double-double. You know what? It's just a fluke game. Next game he goes back, he's regressing. It's crazy to see how quick we are to point fingers rather than pointing thumbs at this team. When we sit there and look, like there's a conversation I actually screenshotted on Twitter because I thought it was emblematic of what the story was tonight. People talking about it, and I don't want to dunk on anybody. I forget who the originator was, so I apologize. If I'm coming for you and you see this, I apologize. It has nothing to do with you. It just got me on this wave of thinking. Basically talking about David Gason, and I've seen this mentioned with a couple of different people, whether it be David Gason or Tyler Perry's gotten it a little bit or Arthur Kaluma's gotten it a little bit. Someone will have a bad game, and it's, hey, they've regressed from last year. They have severely regressed. They're not the same player. They're a different player. They haven't. Guys, here's the thing, man. Everybody take a breath. The word regression, dude. Now, maybe it's just me, but when I look at regression, I want to look at the end of the season and say, wow, dang, his numbers didn't line up. Rather than seeing one bad game saying, he's regressing. That's it. That's happening right now. David Gason, you're regressing. Cam Carter, you're regressing. This guy, you're regressing. I don't want to say that on a one-game basis where Cam could go for 35 and then go for 8. It's like, well, Cam's a bad example because he was averaging 6 last year, so, I'll use David Gason. The final tweet here that I want to give a shout-out to my guy, K-Statriot, talking about it. Someone was talking about David Gason saying, yeah, he's regressed. He's not the player he was last year. Here's the thing. This was the tweet. I wish all of our players would regress by averaging 137% more rebounds per game and 28 more points per game. That's the way to regress, fellas. If you're doing that, I mean, that's a good regression to have. That's a situation. That is a situation. Cam Carter, Tyler Perry, Arthur Kaluma, whoever you want to throw under the bus, like, we got to pump the brakes a little. And I'm not saying they're not subject to criticism. They're not. It's not that. That's not the case. The word regression just needs to be thrown around a little bit less, because we have seen 6 games out of these guys, 7 games out of these guys, man. We don't know who's regressed, who's stepped up, who's developed. We have literally seen the smallest subject size humanly possible at this point in the season. The reason I say this and the reason I feel so, not even butthurt about it, I don't want to make it sound like that, but the reason I feel so adamant about it, it's like, that's all I saw about Will Howard. That one Oklahoma State game, he's regressed, he's not the same quarterback, he's not. Then the guy goes, 5 games straight with no picks and has a 12 to 1 touchdown interception ratio. But fans want Avery Johnson, or fans don't want Will Howard, other cases. I'm not saying that. Obviously, Will's in the portal now, so there's nothing to touch about there. But it's just a word that gets thrown around way too much, guys. We got to switch up the adjectives. We got to switch up the vocab a little bit. The Rolodex of words. When I think about regression, I think about looking at it down the stretch. When we've seen more than 5 or 6 games, for these people that are averaging 17, 18 points a game, saying they've regressed is just, it's laughable. It's comical. What are we doing? And I'm not saying one specific person. I'm not saying just me. It's just like, that's a crazy thing to claim. And somebody's regressing when they're averaging better in both major statistical categories. I don't know. I mean, I know you can affect the game in different ways. You can do different things without showing up on the stat sheet, but we got to pump the brakes on the word regressing, because we do not know the definition of regressing right now. That's just not the case. It's happening. Will Howard, I get the argument. He didn't have as great of a season as he did as a junior for K-State, but there's a lot of times where, even in the junior season, there's balls bouncing off the defender's hands that Will absolutely threw a similar pass he did in his senior season. So, I don't know that people are regressing. What I do know is that it's not always easy to average 18 points a game. To average a double-double is not easy. Sometimes you're not going to do that. It's just not in everybody's nature to be perfect all the time. So when we see these performances that are lackluster performances, I would just urge you a little bit to take some caution and say, you know what? It's not his night. That is such a better mentality than having to see Cam Carter, I mean, you can't, McCaleb Rich, why don't you? It's crazy. It's crazy, guys. We got to pump the brakes on the word regression. Let me get off this. I'll move on now here and talk about something else. Final thoughts on the day. Obviously, you look down the stretch. You had Will McNair. Good minutes, man. Will McNair, shout out to my guy Eric for talking about it. Will McNair is unlike any big we've had at K-State in a while, in the fact that he is capable of being a low factor, or a factor on the low block that we haven't really had to this degree. Obviously, you can make a case for Tomlin, but it's not a physical presence in the low block that you say, this dude is going to command some space. Will McNair takes up space. He is a good guy in space. He can also get out there and defend ball screens. Coach Tang talked about that. Shout out to Will McNair. Good day for Will McNair. Cam absolutely won us that game in overtime. The team didn't allow a single point in 3 minutes and 10 seconds. Cam Carter goes out there, has 4 rebounds in overtime, shuts down McBride, the stud dude that was balling out on us. Cam Carter is going to do that once a game. All right, we need to stop. Cam, get over there. Shut him down. That's going to happen consistently. It doesn't matter which scorer you throw at him. That's going to be a Cam Carter moment. That's going to happen this season. I'm excited to see when Cam Carter gets out there mixed with guys like Arthur Kaluma. I don't know that he's entirely healthy still. Looked like he got kind of banged up there sometime around the second half. We'll see what happens with that. You get a guy like Nae'Qwan Tomlin healthy and back in the lineup in his peak NBA lottery pick type Nae'Qwan Tomlin stuff. I think it's also, I know that his growth has probably been stunted a little bit this offseason by not being at practice all the time or not being with the team all the time, but you got to think, with the advancement that you've seen from Cam Carter, who averaged, I think it was 6 points last year, affected the game but didn't have, as many flashy, that dude's legit. That dude's an NBA player, a player of the year candidate type player in the Big 12 conference. You got to think Nae'Qwan Tomlin would have some of those Superman heroics too. So I don't want to move past that. But to finish this off, I want to end it with a Will McNair quote because I thought it was really good. Will McNair talked in postgame. We were able to learn while winning. We win the game, but we also learn. That's what you got to do as a basketball team, especially in the non-conference schedule. You're going to be tested by teams that don't make sense. I mean, Kansas was only up 1 point on Eastern Illinois. I think it was Eastern Illinois, could have been Eastern Iowa. It's some Eastern team that should not have been in the game when they're 38.5-point favorites for Kansas. That was a reality. They were only up by 1 with 5 minutes to go. These things happen, guys. It's not the end of the world. The sky's not falling. We're not Chicken Little mode. It happens to everybody in the country. Being able to weather the storm and walk away with a 1-0 on the win column, that's the important thing to focus on, and that's what we're going to end today's video with. So I appreciate each and every one of you guys. Thanks for tolerating my little mini rant. I'm excited to see what happens next week. We'll see what happens, who's moving around where, what's going to, what the rotation will look like, what all the different things that we need to talk about will work out. We're going to talk about it here soon. I hope you have a wonderful rest of the day. Once again, consider subscribing. Shout out to Manhattan Brewing Company. We love you, appreciate you, and your beer is awesome. Everybody have a wonderful rest of your day. I'll talk to you here soon. Go Cats.